With the recent news of Pope Francis, it seemed a good idea to do a quick piece summarizing his life story, his character, his achievements, and his stance on various issues that regularly traverse religion and politics. Pope Francis was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in 1936. Of Italian descent, he became the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, the first Pope from the Western Hemisphere, and in fact, the first from South America. Another first, he was also the very first Pope from the Jesuit order. He worked briefly in the food processing industry and studied to become a chemical technician before enrolling for Jesuit priesthood training in 1958. He became an ordained priest in 1969 and took his final vows in the Jesuit order in 1973. Later, he served as the provincial superior of the Society of Jesus in Argentina from 1973 to 1979. He then became the Archbishop of Buenos Aires in 1998 and was eventually made a cardinal by Pope John Paul II in 2001. Finally, he was elected Pope on March 13, 2013, succeeding Pope Benedict XVI. Pope Francis took many progressive stances on various political and social issues, often sparking both praise and criticism. For example, Pope Francis was a strong advocate for environmental protection, emphasizing the moral obligation to combat climate change. He released an encyclical, i.e. a formal letter, Laudato Si', urging action to protect the planet. He was vocal about the rights and dignity of migrants and refugees. He criticized policies that build walls and restrict immigration, emphasizing the need for compassion and solidarity. He had also highlighted the plight of the poor and marginalized, calling for economic systems that prioritize human dignity. However, it's not known if he spent much of the Vatican's wealth in support of their improvement. Pope Francis adopted a more inclusive approach towards LGBTQ+ people, encouraging the Church to welcome them. However, he maintained that homosexual behavior is a sin, though it should not be considered a crime. On armed conflict, such as wars, he advocated for peaceful resolutions to conflicts, including in the Ukraine war. However, his comments on the origins and potential resolutions of the conflict and suggestions for the Ukrainian leadership have been pretty controversial. He urged Catholics to actively participate in democratic processes and promote justice and peace in the public sphere, and work to improve relations between different religious communities. On abortion, Pope Francis showed some compassion towards women who had had abortions, at least to the extent of granting priests the authority to forgive this sin. But he consistently maintained the Catholic Church's traditional stance on abortion, which views it as a grave sin and a violation of the sanctity of human life. He made several strong statements against abortion, suggesting that it's equivalent to murder, and comparing it to hiring a hitman. Pope Francis believed that life begins at conception, and that every human entity, including the unborn, has the right to life from that point, even at the expense of a woman's needs and wishes. As such, he did little to advance women's rights and bodily autonomy. He made some notable statements about atheists, emphasizing inclusivity and the importance of conscience. In one instance, he suggested that even atheists could be redeemed if they follow their conscience and do good. He stated that God's mercy is limitless and that redemption through Christ extends to everyone, not just believers. This seems to go directly against what the Bible says on the issue of belief and acceptance of Jesus. In terms of achievements, he undertook significant reforms of the Roman Curia, the administrative institutions of the Holy See, to increase transparency and efficiency. Pope Francis has emphasized the importance of synodality, a way of collaborating at all levels and sharing responsibility in the Catholic Church, encouraging greater participation and dialogue. He also strengthened the Church's stance against the death penalty, calling for its abolition worldwide. He was also a bit of a globetrotter since becoming Pope, attending events and making appearances across the Americas, in Asia, Africa and Europe. His visits included Muslim-majority countries as well as Christian or secular ones. He attended numerous major world events since becoming Pope, such as the World Youth Day, the United Nations General Assembly, and the World Meeting of Families. In Kazakhstan, Pope Francis participated in the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions Interfaith event, where he promoted dialogue and understanding among different faiths. He also visited several conflict zones such as the Central African Republic in 2015 and South Sudan in 2023. Pope Francis was a vocal advocate for environmental protection and has participated in events related to climate change, including the Paris Climate Conference in 2015. He turned a Vatican Plaza into a shelter for the homeless and transformed part of St. Peter's Square into a refuge, providing showers, haircuts, and medical services for those in need. This initiative was part of his broader efforts to support the marginalized and demonstrate the Church's commitment to social justice and compassion. He also issued historic apologies to survivors of clergy sexual abuse. Pope Francis was known for his humility, compassion, and approachability. He had a warm and down-to-earth demeanor, often breaking with traditional papal protocols to connect more personally with people. He chose to live in a modest guest house rather than the apostolic palace and often emphasized the importance of humility and service. He was known for his approachable and friendly nature. He often engaged with people directly, whether through social media, public appearances, or personal interactions. His warmth and openness endeared him to many. Overall, Pope Francis's personality was characterized by an apparently genuine concern for others, a commitment to social justice, and a desire to make the Church more inclusive and responsive to the needs of the modern world. On a personal level, as a cardinal in Buenos Aires, the Pope enjoyed bagna cauda, a dish from northern Italy, prepared by nuns. The name bagna cauda means hot dip in Italian. It's a warm, savory dip typically made with garlic, anchovies, olive oil, and sometimes butter. Pope Francis was also a passionate football, or soccer, fan. He supported the San Lorenzo de Almagro football club in Argentina. He believed that sports can be a place for promoting unity and personal development, and often emphasized the importance of preserving the amateur spirit in sports, which he saw as essential for maintaining the genuine values of competition. He leaves a legacy characterized by the promotion of some progressive values, whilst maintaining the dogma of the Catholic Church and its strong grip over its followers.